Hey guys, Kirill here, and we are continuing the lessons of the Course in Miracles review lessons, and today's lesson 58. And this is the third last review lesson from the first block of review lessons. But yeah, let's start. Let me share the screen and let me start the presentation. All right. So let's read the review points first. So we start with lesson 36. My holiness envelops everything I see. From my holiness does the perception of the real world come. Having forgiven, I no longer see myself as guilty. I can accept the innocence that is the truth about me. Seen through understanding eyes, the holiness of the world is all I see, for I can picture only the thoughts I hold about myself. Yeah, so these lessons about holiness were a little bit difficult for me because of the word. I had a strong resistance to the word itself, holiness, because I thought, well, there, there is no way it is applicable to me. But yeah, once, yeah, I guess over time, Holy Spirit just showed me how simple the meaning is. And let's try to, we have a number of lessons about holiness today. So let's try to clear this out. So, from my holiness does the perception of the real world come. So, I think it was easier for me when I replaced the word holiness with sinlessness. And the way I thought about, or guiltlessness, and the way I thought about sinlessness is a lack of sin, of course, but at the same time, sin is something unforgivable. So sinlessness means that there is nothing that is unforgivable. Errors, yes. Mistakes, yes. But um, nothing that is unforgivable. And so, from my holiness or sinlessness or guiltlessness, does the perception of the real world come. Having forgiven, I no longer see myself as guilty. So it just clarifies what the perception of the real world means. Having forgiven, I no longer see myself as guilty. And it's kind of important to reiterate that while we are forgiving um, kind of external things like what they did, what bodies did, whatever, I was a victim, they did this to me, blah, blah, blah. So we are forgiving the manifestations of kind of external events. But because we already had these lessons prior, we are projecting all our, we're kind of creating all the events in our mind. So in the end, we are really forgiving ourselves and we are releasing our own guilt. There is no other guilt really. Having forgiven them, kind of, I no longer see myself as guilty. So, result of forgiving them, I actually forgive myself and I don't see myself as guilty anymore. And so, for me personally, this is another reason why, or maybe the first reason why I personally do forgiveness. While technically I forgive them or a situation that will involve something else, uh, like I'm doing it for myself. I'm releasing my own guilt. And I literally feel when I forgive someone, some other body, I feel that my guilt goes away. It's kind of funny. I can accept the innocence that is the truth about me. Yeah, so this one, I remember I was struggling with it. So thinking of myself as innocent was inconceivable in the beginning. But then, little by little, when I released the guilt, what I noticed is that I could observe situations as like without the evil intention, so to speak. So no one really tries to hurt me or, I don't know, cause me pain or anything like that. And by seeing situations as just like situations, and then when I forgive, I actually start seeing most situations as helpful to me. If not anything else, they help me to kind of practice forgiveness in itself, which is important for me. So over time, when I forgive a situation, I started to see how all participants, I can see the entire situation where all participants have no nothing better in their minds at all. So that's my perception. And because I'm perceiving this, it must be that I see myself as innocent because I can't see sins in some other people. Even though just in my mind, maybe when I'm in a situation with real people and some unpleasant discussion happens, I could still be kind of attacking in a way. But when I do forgiveness after the fact, I actually can perceive the situation as completely kind of um, free of evil intent and free of sin. So I could see everyone who is involved in the situation that I just forgiven as well-meaning, as really kind of living in their own delusions and acting just strangely, not because they are punishing me, but because this is what they see. And in fact, in many cases, I can actually see them as blessed, and I can forgive people to a degree, or people in a situation to a degree, where I just kind of see us all laughing and hugging and all that. And so yeah, so I personally do have experience of seeing myself as innocent, and I can accept the innocence that is the truth about me. And the thing is that when we repeat it time and time and time and time and time and time and time again, very slowly it becomes a expectation. And so we can expect that if we did forgiveness right, then we can totally expect to see ourselves as innocent in this situation. And by extension, everyone else as well, to see them as innocent as well. Okay, next. Seen through understanding eyes, the holiness of the world, or sinlessness or guiltlessness, is all I see. For I can picture only the thoughts I hold about myself. Yeah, this is exactly what we discussed just now. Okay, lesson 37, my holiness blesses the world. So the previous lesson was my holiness envelops everything I see. And now my holiness blesses the world, which is kind of the next step. The perception of my holiness does not bless me alone. Everyone and everything I see in its light, in the light of the holiness, shares in the joy it brings to me. There is nothing that is apart from this joy, because there is nothing that does not share my holiness, or sinlessness, or guiltlessness. As I recognize my holiness, so does the holiness of the world shine forth for everyone to see. Okay, let's try to talk a little bit about what Jesus is talking here about. The perception of my holiness does not bless me alone. So this is a, I think, idea of so yeah, I just want to say the idea of principles and miracles that is introduced in the first chapter, but also this is really a statement of unity or union, where it's kind of we share everything with everyone by experiencing it ourselves because we are of one mind. And it's not that we do it on purpose, it's just because it is one mind, it's just how it works. It's natural, and there is literally, you can't do anything about it. It's just how it works. And so the perception of my holiness does not bless me alone. So, first of all, interesting thing, the perception of my holiness blesses me. This is what he says, but not just me. And again, natural, because we're of one mind in the end of the day, although we seem to be separate, but yeah, at the kind of a deeper level, we're all one. Everyone and everything I see in its light, light of the holiness, shares in the joy it brings to me. So interesting. Um, so essentially, it says that when I see people as innocent, joyful, as light, as I don't know, hugging in my mind's eye at least, uh, it shares the joy it brings to me, to them as well. I confirm that I do extend my joy in my mind. But what it says here, that everyone and everything I see shares in the joy it brings to me. Um, this is not, this has not been my experience, at least yet. So I didn't see it in a physical form, but if we think about it on the mind level, it must, because by experiencing joy, I automatically share. By experiencing anything, I automatically share it. The thing is that when we experience things like fear or something, uh, it can be shared in truth. So we only share it in illusion. We must have illusion for these things to be shared. But joy is shared in truth because it belongs to truth. And so, yeah, the way I read it is that because we are of one mind, everything and everyone I see shares the joy it brings to me. There is nothing that is apart from this joy, because there is nothing that does not share my holiness. All right, so it's clear that we're talking about one mind and about true perception here, just because of the context. There is nothing that is apart from this joy, because there is nothing that does not share my holiness. So again, if we replace holiness with sinlessness or guiltlessness, we are clearly talking about the kind of true state of mind, the united God's Son, which is one, and God's Son cannot technically experience anything other than joy, uh, but in illusions, the way Course puts it. So there is nothing that does not share my holiness, of course, because God created us holy. Holiness created us holy. And because of that, everyone must share this joy. Although, in illusion, which is the reality for us for the moment, before we've forgiven the world completely, this might not seem to be so. However, this lesson says that please pay attention that in fact the joy that you feel because of the holiness, which is the result of the forgiveness, well, holiness is we are created holy, but our current perception, in our current perception, holiness of a certain situation is the result of forgiveness of this situation. And so there he says, this is a reminder, the way I read it, that um, when we feel joy, that is the result of the forgiveness and the result of the holiness, we must share this with everyone. It's not that we are doing something to share it, it's just the way it works. Um, okay, so as I recognize my holiness, so does the holiness of the world shine forth for everyone to see. So here he says that I can't really relate to that, like from the top of my head. Couldn't think of any example really. So as I recognize my holiness, as I recognize my sinlessness, as I recognize my guiltlessness, so does the guiltlessness of the world shine forth for everyone to see. So this one is a little bit, I could only talk about it in kind of theoretical sense, and I don't really want to do that. Yeah, I probably don't understand it for now. That I couldn't think of any particular experience that would kind of clarify it for me. And so I'll skip it for now. Maybe we'll see. Maybe the example could come in the meditation or in the exercise later. Okay, lesson 38. There is nothing my holiness cannot do, or sinlessness or guiltlessness. Okay, let's read it first. My holiness is unlimited in its power to heal, because it is unlimited in its power to save. What is there to be saved, to be saved from, except illusions? And what are all illusions except false ideas about myself? My holiness undoes them all by asserting the truth about me. In the presence of my holiness, which I share with God Himself, all idols vanish. All right. So there is nothing my holiness cannot do. When I first read the lesson, I was a little bit unsure what it is talking about. And on the surface, it appears that it, it's like a body is potentially glorified here. But then I thought, well, no, it couldn't be the case, And so I was a little bit unsure what to expect from it. And so there's nothing my holiness cannot do. My current understanding of it is that when we forgive and when we see more and more situations as guiltless or holy, the way that we project onto the world is reflected to us as kind of happy moments. And here, the way I read it now is that doesn't matter how unsolvable, unhappy, stuck, like doesn't matter how long the situation has been going on, you can always forgive the situation and it will shift, or rather my perception of the situation will shift, which then in turn will make the situation different for me. It will no longer upset me. So that's the ultimate thing, ultimate goal of the forgiveness. We are seeking for the peace of God, meaning that nothing will distract us from the peace, meaning that nothing upsets us. And so, situation by situation, we are releasing the guilt. And here it says, doesn't matter how frightening it is, doesn't matter how ingrained it is, doesn't matter how you weren't able to solve it before. There's nothing my wholeness can do. So everything is forgivable, the way I read it. My holiness or guiltlessness is unlimited in its power to heal because it is unlimited in its power to save. So on the form of on the level of words, here we say to save is to heal and to heal is to save. The way I read it is that when so the way I understand it is that to heal, to forgive, to save. So salvation and forgiveness are used more or less interchangeably. Healing and forgiveness are used interchangeably. I don't really. So for me, it's just a little bit relating the meanings of the words to save and to heal. I don't really see a lot of difference. So for me, they're kind of equivalent, to heal and to save. So, but it's important that it says that its power is unlimited, and it emphasizes what we just said about the title of the lesson. There is nothing my holiness cannot do. And unlimited means that all all situations that you perceive as that I perceive as problems can be healed, and I can be saved from the consequences of the situations. So, for example, if I have I don't know, unhappy family relationships, it doesn't matter for how long they have been going, like 40 something years in my case, whatever might be in your case, I still could heal it and I can be saved from the consequences of that situation, which really means healing the relationship with my relatives. As an example, what is there to be saved from except illusions? And what are all illusions except false ideas about myself? My holiness undoes them all by asserting the truth about me. So, really, the way I read it is a description of the forgiveness process. So, in like the way I practice it, forgiveness for me is really recognizing that there never was a problem, and really kind of Holy Spirit helps me to understand that no one really wanted to do anything to me. Then the most important thing, I guess, or the most difficult thing, I guess, in the forgiveness process for me is to accept the 100% responsibility. So if something has happened, uh, I must be able to emphatically say that it's me who created the situation. Doesn't matter how it looks, doesn't matter who does it, doesn't matter what happened, doesn't matter if they could have done something else to make my life easier. It is me. So radical 100% acceptance of my 100% responsibility about the situation. So I have projected, I had this uh, illusion, and I have projected the kind of essence of this illusion, or symbolically recreated this illusion in the outside world. Doesn't matter if I kind of, if it was conscious or unconscious, doesn't change anything. Mind is mind. And so here it says, what is there to be saved from except illusions? And yes, so forgiveness asks us to accept that what we are looking, the meaning that we project onto the situation is an illusion. And what are all illusions except false ideas about myself? Yes, because I am creating the outside world and everything in it by assigning a meaning to it, and therefore all illusions are false ideas about myself. What could be an example? For example, I could think that I'm not good enough, and the people I love would go away, saying that I'm not good enough, replaying my belief about myself. Or, I don't know, I'm afraid about some money related issue, and it replays itself. And I am afraid that it has adverse kind of consequences for me. And this situation is replayed because I am convinced this. So my image of myself includes negative consequences of this situation on me, on my life, the way I see me. And so the forgiveness always includes recognizing these deeper beliefs about myself that cause the problem, accepting their responsibility and releasing them. And Holy Spirit always gives you the different point of view, something to kind of, the way I think for many people it works kind of differently. I think it's an individual thing, but the way it works for me, that in the end I see the situation in completely different light. I'm frequently grateful for the, like sincerely grateful for the situation, because it helped me to clear something, and because it helped me to really ask big things, because I recognized how small my question was. If we take, for example, the money situation, I could recognize the idea that I assigned the meaning to a money related situation, that it threatens my well-being, my life, maybe even. And by recognizing these ideas about myself and letting them go, I kind of allow the spirit to give me its interpretation. And in majority of cases, this is a very unexpected and very, very different interpretation of the same situation. And so my holiness undoes them all illusions and ideas about myself, by asserting the truth about me. So for me, here it captures the essence of the forgiveness process. In the presence of my holiness, which I share with God Himself, all idols vanish. So again, it's just a consequence of doing forgiveness uh, with all the things as they happen on a daily basis. Okay, let's move on. Lesson 39. My holiness is my salvation. Since my holiness saves me from all guilt, recognizing my holiness is recognizing my salvation. It is also recognizing the salvation of the world. Once I have accepted my holiness, nothing can make me afraid. And because I'm unafraid, everyone must share in my understanding, which is the gift of God to me and to the world. So we are continuing the theme of holiness today. And this lesson says that essentially, since my holiness saves me from all guilt, um, yeah, here we'll look at holiness from a slightly different perspective, although it's pretty much the same thing. But here we say, by having this guilt inside of us and believing in this guilt that we're separate from God, we are projecting this guilt outside and we are suffering from the consequences of this projection by living in our personal health, in the external world, in bodies, and so on, so on, so on. Since my holiness saves me from all guilt, so here we say that my guiltlessness or holiness or sinlessness saves me from all guilt, from the way I read it, from all the consequences of the guilt. Recognizing my holiness is recognizing my salvation. Recognizing the situations where, I don't know, something was bothering you and you did forgiveness, maybe it was resolved after one session, maybe after 20. So occasionally there are stubborn problems that require like consistent application of forgiveness. Um, Recognizing my holiness is recognizing my salvation. And so once the situation, um, you're upset about the situation dissolved, you can see how there is no one to blame. Nothing bad really happened. And because you no longer project your upset onto the situation, you are saved from the negative emotions and consequences of those negative emotions related to that situations. Kind of a problem that we have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of these situations and beliefs and all that in our illusion, but this is doable, and you can see a progress after uh, kind of some consistent practice. And so it says, recognizing my holiness is recognizing my salvation. If I release the upset by doing forgiveness, I will I will have to recognize that I am saved from the negative consequences of my previous negative belief. And also it is recognizing the salvation of the world, again, automatically, because we are projecting out our beliefs and they are replayed in a symbolical way in the situations of our everyday lives. And as we see fewer situations, fewer and fewer and fewer situations that have negative consequences to us when we were threatened, when we were offended, whatever it is, we must see fewer and fewer, we must recognize fewer and fewer of those things in the outside world. So this is a generalization of the lesson, the way Course puts it. And it happens completely automatically. Once I have accepted my holiness, nothing can make me afraid. Obviously, because I'm not projecting the negative consequences onto anything. And here, accepting the holiness is forgiving all the situations. And because I'm unafraid, and I'm unafraid because everything is just helpful. So once I release the fear, the situation becomes helpful because, and why is that? It's actually important. Situation becomes helpful, if nothing else, because it helped me to release the guilt. And everything has a potential to help me to release the guilt. And because I'm unafraid, which means I see everything as helpful, everyone must share in my understanding, which is the gift of God to me and to the world. Everyone must share in my understanding. Again, like with some of the previous lessons, it doesn't correspond to my personal experience. So the way I read it, theoretically, is that I can see spontaneous kind of shift in opinion so that others now reflect back to me my lack of fear and my lack of attack by reflecting me back the well-meaning, being helpful, joy, peace, and so on, which is the gift of God into the world. So can't comment on that yet. And the last lesson for today, I'm blessed as a son of God. Lesson 40. Herein lies my claim to all good and only good. I am blessed as a son of God. All good things are mine because God intended them for me. I cannot suffer any loss or deprivation or pain because of who I am. My Father supports me, protects me, and directs me in all things. His care for me is infinite and is with me forever. I am eternally blessed as his son. Okay, so let's probably start. So, to be able to understand that, I guess, it's one of those lessons where, from these bullet points, it's not necessarily obvious on which level we're talking. Seems like from the third bullet point that I can't suffer any loss and deprivation and pain because of who I am. It seems like a statement that once I realized who I am by practicing forgiveness and by releasing all the expectation of fear, negative consequences. So essentially, these are consequences of guilt. By releasing guilt, so once I release enough guilt to remember who I am and stay with this remembered state all day, every day, I can't suffer any loss or deprivation or pain, which is reasonable because I will perceive everything as one, essentially. that everything is interconnected, no one really ever dies, and so on, so on, so on. It's only the appearance. And I will see illusion for what it is. But let's return to the beginning. Herein lies my claim to all good and only good. I am blessed as a son of God. So again, this is, for me, the way I read it, it's a statement of the kind of end state. So once we forgive everything, we will recognize that only good can come out of everything. And this is kind of what Course is talking um, as the highest good for me means highest good for everyone. And herein lies my claim. So I claim all the good and only good. So my understanding is that it really, or logically, it's really only possible once we release uh, almost all the guilt. All good things are mine because God intended them for me. And when we say good, and only good, and can't suffer, so we're still talking about perception, but this is a so-called how it's called in the course, true perception, I think. Yeah, true perception. So true perception recognizes that I am unity. I'm united with God all the time, and the external world is just a toy, just an illusion. And I'm happy to leave it behind. And so all good things are mine because God intended them for me. My Father supports me, protects me, and directs me in all things. His care for me is infinite and is with me forever. So yeah, I guess it's the same thing. Once we release enough guilt and we are able to not just hear Holy Spirit, but trust it like absolutely in everything. There is no reason to plan for anything. There is no reason to kind of have anything in place that would protect me from, for example, would protect my body from the climate, or would, um, like when we talk supports me, first thing that crosses my mind, of course, is food. Protect me is clothing and monetary support as well. And most important, direct me in all things. So it's not just hearing Holy Spirit, but trusting it like 100%, which is again comes with releasing of all the guilt, because by releasing the guilt, we are releasing the resistance to trust Holy Spirit in all things. His care for me is infinite and with me forever. I'm eternally blessed as his son. Okay, so for those who look at the recording and haven't read it, my suggestion is that you pause the video and read it. So here I expressed a couple of thoughts about the resistance. Basically, if you don't do the lesson as the course describes it should be done, this is some form of resistance. It could be anxiety, it could be, I don't know, whatever form it takes for you. Uh, the best way I know how to deal with that is just to sit and accept the responsibility for not doing the lesson properly and ask Holy Spirit for guidance. The guidance will come, expect it to come. And so with that, we are moving to meditation. I'm pausing the video, and I will see you in 10 minutes. Welcome back. Just had a nice meditation. Let me quickly show screen back. Here, here. Yeah, so the way meditation worked for me is that somehow I was shown the cycles of progress where I forgive something and then I think, oh, that's the whole new world. So holiness envelops everything I see, holiness blesses the world. There's nothing my holiness can do. So I'm becoming more and more kind of brave to forgive more and more things. And my holiness is my salvation. So it appears that I feel better. I don't uh, have as many bad moments. I'm not as easily irritated. I'm attacking visibly less. And I feel, and then I'm blessed as the Son of God. I feel that this is a true achievement. But then what happens is that this new improved state, I'm getting used to it. And then there appear new situations that need my forgiveness. And then the whole cycle repeats. So when I'm kind of on in the end of the previous phase, I become a little bit more complacent, where I think, oh, I'm such it's such an achievement, and I'm so much better off. And once I start thinking like that, ego uh, starts to influence me a lot more, because there is this kind of impression that, oh, I release so much that I don't need to practice as much. And so, yeah, so the practice starts slipping a little bit, deteriorating, not by much, but I kind of pay attention. And then what happens is that there are new things that need to be forgiven, and then the cycle repeats. I start forgiveness, it gets better, 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 better. And then at some point of time, the cycle repeats itself and finishes. I think to myself, oh, I did so much work. I deserve a um, some treat, like like a dog or a cat. When they do something good and you want to stimulate this behavior, you give them a treat. Or in human form, it might be something like um, yeah, something that you think is not so good from the course's perspective, but you deserve a break, something like that. But yeah, so I just, Holy Spirit showed me how forgiveness works in kind of cycles. And the way I understood it, it's like peeling the onion. You shave the layer by layer by layer by layer by layer, many, many, many repetitions. But in the end of the day, there is a final layer that is there is a final brick in this wall that you dismantle. So yeah, it was a interesting view. I actually never noticed it before, the way forgiveness works for me. Alrighty, so yeah, that's what we just did. And our traditional carousel. Just switching. So, as usual, for those who are new, I was guided to um, do these review lessons in the following way. We will look at the same slides, same lesson slides with review points, and the slides will rotate every 20 seconds. And so the idea is to pick a single bullet point on each slide every time it rotates, and to focus for 20 seconds on just this bullet point and nothing else. Because it's 20 seconds, it is possible to not get distracted. And so the next 20 seconds, there will be next slide. You can pick something else. The way it works for me, my kind of eyes stop at certain bullet point. I'm not really sure how it works, but I always know where to look and I just focus on that. But you can do all first bullet points first, then all second bullet points, all third bullet points, and so on. So we have 5 lessons. They are repeated 6 times, which is about 10 minutes, takes about 10 minutes. And yeah, let's just do that. All right, let me start. ACIM. Okay. So for me, it was interesting because what happened is I had quite strong experience of releasing resistance right now while doing the lesson. And it's like, it's kind of hard to explain, but what I was imagining is that if God created us as an extension of his thought, and we created all these illusions to just shield ourselves from God, I was like, oh, what? And particularly because these lessons talk about holiness and blessing, I was thinking, instead of trying to push through all these layers of illusions and to reach God, why wouldn't I start with God, at least on kind of theoretical level, and then try to bridge the gap? And yeah, I just started to imagine what it would feel like to be a complete pure thought of joy and happiness and kindness and love that shares everywhere and is everywhere, and we only know that and nothing else. And yeah, there was some shift in my perception. I probably couldn't explain what it was, but it felt a lot realer, more real than it used to be. And yeah, it's interesting. I guess this is the end goal of the course, to realize our true nature as a more real thing, and ultimately the only real thing, and the world outside of us as an illusion. So yeah, it was certainly especially towards the end, a quite happy exercise today, which I'm grateful for. And so here is our review lesson 58. Hope you enjoyed the way I did, or more. And see you all in a week. Thanks so much.